You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
We can grow. We can develop.
As we know that heaven is not a place, and happiness lives in the heart. Long as the world keep turning, our duty is to keep on learning. You heard?
Keep on learning. It's soaking up game. We gon' make mistakes. We gon' go through something. Keep on growing. Keep on soaking up game. If something ain't working, don't be afraid to change.
Nobody know it all. As soon as you think you do, that's when you fall. We got to do more to survive. We must evolve. Things change just when you think you've seen it all. We trip, we stumble, but we get back in stride. Each day all the way, one step at a time. Don't want to let my ego and pride make me blind. The elders say when you stop growing, that's when you die. The one who gets the knowledge is the one who asks why.
Greetings to you, and welcome to another edition of MIB Unleashed, Real Black Talk. I'm Brother Wayne, your host, and riding with me as normal is Brother Maurice. We'd like to welcome you all to another edition of our Real Black Talk. Our goal, of course, is to deprogram and restore original pride. We're hopeful that we're doing that. We are MIB, which is Mentors in Blackness. You can catch us on the internet, catch us on our website, actually, to check out us and actually give us a call and bring us into your town so that we can do what we do with our youth. You can see us at MIBNESS.com. That's MIBNESS.com. Give us a check out, look at our curriculum, and then give us a call. We got contact information on there so that you can give us a call. And we'll be glad to come and do what we do. But today, in our show, we're going to try and deal with a really, really touchy subject. We're trying to hit on those points that we think the viewer, we are hoping that the viewer is new to the information that we're sharing. And if you are not, then, good. But we hope that you're new to the information that we're sharing, and we're just doing our part, trying to raise the conscious level of those persons in our community so we can move forward. Today, brother, we're going to try to deal with, we're going to really give props, like we say, to a book that was written. And unfortunately, I didn't bring the book with me to be able to hold up so that they can see it. But it's a book that you and I both think is a great piece, written by Brother Tom Burrell, called Brainwashed.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to share with you this whole concept of brainwashed and its impact in our community presently. And it's really premised on this opening. I'm going to share with you this opening, and then we'll go from there. How about that?
Well, it's an excerpt from the book.
It's an excerpt from the book,
Okay.
and it's, what we're going to discuss today is basically premised on this thought. Let me share this with you. We are strong, survivors of the Middle Passage, the whip and the chains. We have survived centuries of terror, humiliation, vilification, and deprivation. We are smart. Even when our literacy was illegal, we learned quickly, invented, discovered, built, taught, and excelled against all odds. We are creative, making a way out of no way, and constantly birthing and rebirthing American art and culture. So then, why, after all this time, when calculating the achievement of the American dream, are we still ranked at the bottom of almost every good list and at the top of the bad list? Why, despite our apparent strength, intelligence, and resourcefulness do we continue to lag behind and languish in so many aspects of American life? The answer is intricately linked to the hundreds of years blacks have lived with white guilt and black shame. It lurks just beneath the surface of the American consciousness, like a cancer that can't be healed because it can't be discussed honestly and openly. This is an excerpt from the book Brainwashed by Mr. Tom Burrell. Good start, right?
Yes, sir.
I guess the question that we all want to know, but you have to accept the premise, and I know you and I do, that we are not a weak people.
Right.
We're not an ignorant people. We're not a non-intelligent people. We're not a non-resourceful people. But why do we continue to bring up the rear in all of the indexes that point out life and the enjoyment of life in American society? Is it rooted in this one word? Is it rooted in brainwash?
I believe so. Brother Wayne, if you look back at the first part of the excerpt, when we actually came over here from Africa, enslaved, we had a culture, we had a religion, we had folk ways, more ways, and we had a God. We had villages, cities or towns. We had countries. We had something that we could identify as being our own. But once we got off, or while we were on those ships, when they began the brainwashing and the stripping of our culture, that process was the start of the brainwashing. And I think that when we deal with that, you and I, we accept that. But the masses of the people do not see it as we see it.
So many of our people, though, think that to suggest that something that took place and that happened to us centuries ago can't be still a problem today. So many of our people are willing to dismiss what you just suggested, is that the process that brought us here, that we're still impacted by that the losing of our culture and the losing of our names, losing of our religious concepts and principles, that can't be continuing to impact us today, that we've become the American. And why aren't we getting the benefits of the America that we talk about?
Well, there are two Americas. There's America for white people, which is privilege, and then there's America for black people.
Is that the white guilt that we're talking about? You getting ready to go to?
Right.
Because the America for whites that you're suggesting is the America that when we got here and wasn't able to own land and was not able to own property nor able to educate ourselves,
right,
there were people here who were able to do all of that.
Correct.
Correct. So that would naturally give them an advantage.
Right.
Okay.
And then some people are not aware of those privileges until they actually think about it. And I'm talking about Caucasian white people at this point. And then we, as black people, African Americans as we're politically called, we have a tendency not to accept that this damage was done. We want to reject it. We want to be in denial. And that denial causes us to continue to be in the state of being brainwashed.
When we use the term brainwash, a lot of people are going to lose immediately because they're going to say, I'm not brainwashed. What do you mean brainwash? The idea of brainwashing. Well, to me, brainwash is to be taught how not to pursue your best interests. That to me is what brainwashing is. Is that a person can be taught how not to do what's best for them.
Right.
And to really do what's best for somebody else or for me.
Right.
That's what brainwashing is. And this is what Mr. Burrell maintains took place among us.
If there was not a process that they didn't come to terms with, there would never have been a civil rights law passed. There would never have been an affirmative action law passed.
Well, very, very true. But let's go to, we know we went through the evils of slavery.
Right.
We know that we spent, some say 300 years, some say 340, whatever. We spent centuries in slavery.
300 years average.
Being denied the rights of a human being.
Right.
Being bought and sold. We know we went through 300 or 3 centuries of that. And then they had what was called the passage of the 13th Amendment,
Right.
which gave us the legal freedom.
Right.
But of course, it didn't take into consideration all of the years that we had been denied.
Right.
But they did at least let us go free.
Right.
And we immediately, based on the history that we know, we began to do the things that was in our best interest.
Right.
We started to establish educational institutions.
Right.
We started to establish cities and towns.
Right.
All of the things that we knew what was in our best interest as being former slaves.
Right.
And being behind, and we knew we had to. So if we got out of slavery, we began the process. What happened?
Well, see, you stated it. We developed and processed a concept of community life. We knew that we had to establish that. But if you look at right after slavery, when we established community life and we got into government, we started making the right moves. Look at the perfect example down in Oklahoma.
Progress was being made.
Black Wall Street.
Yes, I hope most of our viewers know about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or a suburb of Tulsa, where the black community there was thriving,
Right.
and was doing its thing.
Right. Black businesses, doctors, lawyers, all the parties that would participate in a community.
But this is where, well, right after what we're alluding to is where Mr. Burrell says the brainwashing took place on a massive scale.
Right.
Because apparently, right after we got out of slavery, we knew what was necessary. We knew we had to establish ourselves, our institutions, and we knew we had to build ourselves up in our cities and do all those things.
Right.
But apparently, we were attacked. Apparently, there was an outright attack on the success of black people.
Right.
This is where your lynchings began to happen in more than numbers.
Right.
This is where, of course, lynchings of business people,
Right.
lynchings of people who, quote unquote, didn't know their place. And it happened throughout the South mainly,
Right.
because that's where we were mainly.
Right.
We were mainly in the South.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure that there were some northern instances of it too. We're not saying that it didn't take place at all in the North. But throughout the South, the word we use today is terrorism.
Right.
And it was just terrorism that was used in order to literally unseat us or to render us at zero all over again.
They would say, keep the N-word in its place.
And that's what took place with us. And then on top of that, once you got in that level of fear on, then they took place with this whole concept that Mr. Burrell puts in place, that was taking part in with the film industry, with all of the institutions in the United States to help get us out of the mentality of helping ourselves, and mainly because now fear would help us do it.
Right.
Because if we moved on our own, we knew we would be attacked. And then came the whole emphasis on teaching us how to lose ourselves, our racial identity.
Dignity.
Ourselves, and stop thinking in terms of establishing our things, black stuff and all that kind of stuff. Because, at one time, that's what our goal was.
Right.
And then they made sure that we would behave in a certain way. So the media jumped in with the film industry showing one of the greatest actors of all time. I may have his picture here. One of the greatest actors of all time, our brother, Lincoln Theodore Monroe Andrew Perry, better known as Stephen Fetchit.
Right.
Stephen Fetchit became the first black man to earn $1 million in Hollywood.
Yes, sir.
And the image that he presented was very pivotal to this whole brainwashing role.
Right.
And y'all know the role of Stephen Fetchit. He played the unintelligent, ignorant even, black man who was easily frightened, and they put him in over 47 films.
Minstrel.
To show this image of the black man. At the same time, they had used fear to frighten us away from pursuing our own best interests. Now the brainwashing had to take place.
Right.
To embed us in our mindset that that's who we were. And everybody started viewing us as such, and then we started internalizing this image. We become the comic relief of the movies. Every time you see us, it's a joke.
Right.
You know? So that's a part of the brainwash. Now, who is Mr. Burrell? Mr. Burrell is one of the first and had the largest black advertising agencies in the United States.
Right.
And you know what advertisers do, and he was speaking from an advertising perspective. Advertisers basically control your mind. They want to force you to move in a direction that you may not be intending to move in.
Make you buy a product when you had no interest in the product until they showed it.
Advertising is the largest industry in the United States. You notice this with Super Bowl ads.
Right.
Since the television is really there to track your attention long enough so that someone can sell you a product.
Right.
So that means that the most looked at or the most viewed shows have the highest rates of advertising on those shows.
Right.
Because they got the most people watching.
Right.
So the Super Bowl is the most watched program in the United States.
Right.
So 1 minute worth of advertising.
30 seconds.
30 seconds even. They chop it all the way down to 30 seconds. You can even probably buy a 15 second ad.
Right.
Millions of dollars
Right.
to convince them. So if millions of dollars are going to be paid for 30 seconds worth of advertising, that tells you that somebody believes that advertising works.
Yes, and I want to add to what you're saying, Brother Wayne. As you were speaking, I noticed that when you had the Confederate and the Union battling over the battle, they were fighting over not technically whether the slave was going to be free or enslaved. They were fighting for what we would call business. It was a business war.
It was a financial decision, of course. The South was making all the money because they had the free labor.
Right.
And the North was looking to industrialize and was not going to be able to compete.
Now, that being said, when you look at it, when we were free, we became a competitor to the Southern Caucasian.
Absolutely.
So he was not going to allow that because he got shafted with the war, the Civil War. So he was coming out of the Civil War, so he saw this African American or black person as a threat to their way of life.
And we certainly would have been a legitimate threat because we were the artisans. We were the people who did the work. So that means that we were the carpenters,
Plumbers.
we were the plumbers, we were the people who worked
Bricklayers.
We were all of that.
Right.
Thus you had the creation of these unions.
Right.
To block these artisans, the people who were the workers who were black, out from getting the best jobs.
Right.
And the white guys were able to do that.
Although we were the best.
Although we were the best, but we were blocked from it for being there. But he's absolutely right. It's the competition component that they had to act.
Right.
And by acting on it, and then at the same time, using your media to shape the image of the people so that we will behave in a way that they preferred us to behave in. This is what the book Brainwashing is talking to you about. It's talking about behavior that they've advertised for us to be.
Right. In other words, we were placed in a box to say that, hey, look, you are not going to be a producer. You're only going to be a consumer. And if you look at the big picture right now, that's what we do. We do not produce on a serious level anything.
And it continues, the brainwashing continues because we accept the roles and then now we perpetuate it.
Right.
We self-perpetuate the brainwashing roles. This is why we're having the conversation. You have to recognize that this whole brainwashing impact on black people, because we're not the people that's being presented into the world. Mm-hmm. We're not these buffoons, and now they got us as the super sexed, crazed people with all of the shows that they project us on, these so-called what they call them, reality shows.
Reality shows like the one that Flavor Flav played a part on.
Well, they take ghetto lives, ghetto behavior, and they project it out to the world as normal.
Yeah, and this is how we act. Notice the term reality. So this is the reality of this people that we're depicting on this program.
So that we don't have the sympathy of the world if they choose to do, say for instance, mass incarceration.
Right.
If they choose to arrest us in record numbers to fit into the whole prison industrial complex,
Right.
so that we can earn more money, again, we're back to the capitalism,
Right.
so that the major corporations can earn more money and there won't be an outcry because we've been portrayed as the criminal class.
Right.
And we fulfill that because they say when the jobs are not available in our communities, you don't do any thinking about how can I create a job for myself legally.
Right.
First thing we fall down to is what the image of us is, because now they got this American Gangster series,
Right.
where they highlight, promote former drug dealers.
Right.
And I'm saying former drug dealers because they all either have died, got killed, or in prison.
Right. And then if you look at it, you know, when they show one version of an American gangster, the guy that was over the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover,
Yeah.
they show him as an American gangster, but he was the one who spread the terror in our communities. He annihilated all of our black leaders. He took the Black Panther Party, took Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and see, we are not aware of that because we don't really care because we've been in tune with this brainwashing process where we try to forget. We live our lives in denial.
And one of the advantages that they have to be successful with brainwashing is that when you're not aware that it's going on.
Now that's work.
Okay.
Yeah.
What Mr. Burrell does in his book, he points out to you and us, the name of the book is Brainwashed, is that just like in the world of advertising, they can do the same thing with society, with the social structure.
Who was the guy named in Germany?
They can set your place in society. You're talking about Mr. Edward Bernays.
Yes, sir.
Edward Bernays, you know Edward Bernays, B-E-R-N-A-Y-S. Edward Bernays is a very interesting person in the history of the United States. Matter of fact, he was considered one of the 100 most influential men of the 19th century.
Okay.
And so if you look him up, you'll find out that he is responsible for a lot of thinking that you think you chose on your own, but he came up with the method that they used to call propaganda.
Right.
It was called propaganda until Nazis in Germany used it for something evil.
Right.
And so the word now propaganda kind of associates with some evil process. And so they quit using the word propaganda and it became known as public relations.
Right. PR.
PR.
Yes, sir.
So public relations now, and this guy is the father of the kind of, Edward Bernays is the father of public relations. He's known for doing some really great things with public relations. For instance, he's responsible for women becoming smokers. At one time, the female did not smoke cigarettes.
Right. And didn't vote for that matter. Yes, sir.
And the cigarette industry said, listen, we've got 50% of the population who we need to be able to sell cigarettes to.
Right.
But right now they don't smoke. They eschew cigarette smoke.
Right.
So Mr. Edward Bernays came up with a campaign where he depicted ladies smoking cigarettes and that as being cultured, high cultured, and also independent.
Right. Feminine. Yeah.
So he had some the big parade in New York City, and he paid some females, some women to dress up and to show them smoking cigarettes and having real independent looks. And then you notice the ads that they started running, started showing women smoking and made them look independent and made them look really influential.
Right.
And then they hit the movies.
Right.
With the stars smoking the cigarettes.
Right.
Every film, especially if you look at those black and white films,
Smoking cigarettes.
they got those stars smoking cigarettes to give the women the image that they too can smoke cigarettes. And now you have, just like the cigarette industry desired, half of the population smoking again. Now, I'm suggesting they probably did the same thing with youth.
Okay, now guess what? In the process, you mentioned that in Tom Burrell's book, he points out how they use our guy to push Code 45.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, the Code 45.
Yeah.
You're talking about
Billy D. Williams.
Mr. Billy D. Williams.
And so that was the cool thing. It's like you would have to really look at the process, just like he was mentioning with the cigarette. But they use Billy D. Williams. He is a very conceptually cool guy.
Icon.
Right. So when he did the commercial for Code 45, it's just like things were not going to be right if you didn't have a Code 45 bill.
And they constantly do that with advertising and marketing in our communities. If you look at the billboards in the black community,
Right.
they always have some vice
Right.
advertised in our communities on billboards.
Right.
I guess the point we're making here, and the point that the book emphasizes is that you can be programmed to pursue your own demise. And that's what has happened to our community. That's the answer to the question that we raised. Why are we still at the bottom of so many indexes when it comes to life expectancy, when it comes to all of the things that we chart, whether or not a community is healthy or not? Why are we constantly at the bottom?
Right.
Why are we constantly addressing issues that we addressed in the 60s,
Right.
that we addressed in the 80s? Now we're still addressing those issues. That's because the machine hasn't stopped.
Well, when you get back to the 60s, as you mentioned, we became the people who became conscious, and we knew that we needed to get our foothold in the society because we realized that we had been placed in second-class citizenship. But as soon as we started pushing, say it loud, we black and we proud, and black is beautiful. And we started expressing ourselves with the afros and started doing the Do for Self program again from the, like you say, from the Reconstruction period. We went back to that. We started dealing with the issues in the communities.
The 60s did it. Yeah.
Right. And that was short-lived though. It lasted for less than 10 years.
Because it was perceived as a counter. This is what I was going to get to before
Right.
we end.
Right.
Since you've gone there.
Right.
The only way to thwart the brainwashing impact is to counter it.
Right.
And that's what we came up with in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
We had to counter that which they were doing to us, but it was the counter to it was the Black Power movement.
Right.
And those who were doing what they do understood it to be a counter.
Right.
And they literally attacked it.
They had a campaign.
It's a campaign.
And they started taking out the leaders, they started taking out the groups, they started arresting them, imprisoning them. They even killed people who were a part of the struggle of really raising the consciousness of the people.
And we know this to be true now.
Yes, sir.
Because of the Freedom of Information Act that got passed in 1977. We're able to go and get and demand FBI files.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out about COINTELPRO.
Yes, sir.
The counterintelligence program, which was designed to thwart this black thinking
Right.
that was taking place.
This movement.
This movement.
Yes, sir.
Something similar, in my view, has taken place with the hip hop.
Right, right.
Because when it began, it immediately moved in the direction of consciousness.
Right, in the 90s.
In the 90s,
Early 90s.
you had all of those songs that were promoting Africa, African consciousness, the Poor Righteous Teachers and
Public Enemy.
Public Enemy.
Ed being Rakim.
The other brother with Booger Down Productions.
Right. KRS-One.
KRS-One.
Yeah.
These young men, and there was some young women, even Latifah came
Right.
out with Unity.
Queen, yeah.
UNIT.
Right. That's what the Queen Latifah, see, she dropped the Queen after they attacked us. She said, well, I'm not Queen Latifah, I'm Latifah now.
It was another counter
Right.
to what they are constantly doing in terms of brainwashing us to act against our own best interest.
Right.
So when those counters come along, then they have to counter the counter.
And that's that propaganda too. That's the brainwashing. It's a continual process. And until we look at this thing, realistically approach it, strategize, and come up with a plan and a course of action to avert it, we're going to continue to be in a brainwashed state.
Or to accept the fact that our condition is not an accident.
Right.
Because remember what we said in the beginning? We are smart.
Right.
We are intelligent. We are resourceful.
Yes, sir.
We are strong.
Yes, sir.
We are all those things. But why are we constantly coming up at the bottom end? That's because something is happening to us. This is what Tom Burrell points out in his book called Brainwashed. And we are just giving him props for the book, but we're just trying to give you how practically it happens.
Right.
For instance, we talked about how they thwarted the movement in the 60s with Black Power by attacking. They literally gunned down the Black Panthers. They went in and stormed Fred Hampton and killed and shot him up. They put all the other leaders and chased them out of the town or put them in jail. And so, in effect, rendered that movement completely non-existent. So that I'm at the age group that when I was a teenager, they were all gone.
And see, that's what they do with individuals. But see, people don't understand a cultural revolution is not as violent. The only reason why it was violent is because they perpetuated the violence on us. So when we say revolution, we're not talking about going out and tearing up a town or a city, burning it up. We're talking about raising the consciousness. That's a cultural revolution.
So that's how they control you. They control us through our behavior, and your behavior is your mindset. And so that's why we're saying what we do is deprogram and restore the original pride that you should have and that you're supposed to have as a Black person living on the planet Earth. And then once you get deprogrammed, then you got to go out there and cast the stone at the falsehood that is presently encapsulating our community. For instance, take what the condition that hip hop is in right now. How did that happen? How did we get to the point where hip hop is more dangerous to us now than it is good for us?
Right, and if you look at the way that the women are degraded,
Absolutely.
the way that they push the drugs, everything has to be drug related, degrading women related, some material wealth related. It's nothing about culture and consciousness at this time. And that's the damning effect, and that's the brainwashing effect. If they can take a whole youth, meaning that all of the youth between 13 and 25 today, and have them listen to the garbage every day, day in and day out. And that's interesting. I heard yesterday on the airwaves that it's about sex and it's supposed to be a song. Why does it have to be related to sex every time?
It's sex and it's drugs. Everybody's got to be a baller or a boss.
Yes.
What are they talking about? They're talking about being a kingpin.
Right.
That's all it is.
A drug dealer.
A drug dealer. Ain't nobody, and the music is not, and if you're not a drug dealer or a boss or whatnot, then why is it that you see all of the sports figures being promoted so highly?
Right.
See, it's all brainwashing. Tom Burrell puts it really well. It's all brainwashing, y'all. We just got to quit being afraid of the word. The word simply means that you are being advertised, you're being marketed to, and you're being marketed to pursue your own worst interest, to go against what is best for you and your community.
Now, look at the dumbing down effect. Now, how is it that when they talk about intelligence or smarts, they have to relate it to, oh, you acting white?
That still exists?
Yes, sir. I mean, you have a scholar here that's a young African American, be it male or female, and they're being taunted for being smart.
If that still exists, that is the most glaring example of how they are brainwashing.
Yes.
So what I'm saying about brainwash is that we're being taught how not to pursue our own best interest. And so you're telling me that if we still exist where being intelligent, being smart, moving toward nothing but excellence in academics is being frowned upon, then we know we're being brainwashed there. We have to be being brainwashed.
Jawanza Kunjufu says that they have a pep rally for sports activity.
Yes, sir.
And then This person that makes all A's, they get a little certificate. They don't get a whole pep rally for that. So it's kind of like, when you think about it, they're celebrating sports, just like you mentioned earlier.
In our community.
But they're not putting forth no type of effort when this person makes the good grade.
Go in any 3rd or 4th grade classroom and ask the children in that room, the black boys in that room, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you'll get your own answer.
Yes, sir.
All of them going to say a basketball player, a football player. They're going to say some kind of sports guy.
Right.
Or they're going to say, I want to be a rapper. So you mean to tell me that all of the messages that's coming out to our young people right now is to be either sports figures or to be rap stars? And guess what messages is going to our women? Is to be, you are TNA. That's what you are. And you are what you can present to the world in terms of your body.
And that goes back to the concept of being a sex toy.
That's it.
A piece of meat, a piece of flesh. So that woman in our community is degraded as just a sex item.
That's it. And that's a reality that your young children are consuming. Your boy children are consuming this. And then you're raising girls, and you're going to have to deal with your girls' boys' friends who you may not know the relationships that they have, but that's the dynamic. He's seeing her as a sex toy and as an object of pleasure for him. And she's measuring herself based on her own body and ability to attract men based on her body. That's the message that we get when we look at the world of hip hop and we look at what the messages that are bombarding our community. That's the brainwashing that Mr. Tom Burrell is speaking of in his book called Brainwashed.
Now, 60 players are going to be eligible for the draft. I'm giving an average. Now, don't try to hold me to this number. I'm just saying an average number. 60 for football, no more than 100. 60 for basketball.
32, really. I think it's 32 basketball teams.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I'm giving an average that, 60 people are going to be made eligible to 100.
Sure.
So if it's only going to be 200 people available for two sports, for basketball and football, then look in your community and divide that number. Look in all the cities around this country. We have 50 states, and in each state we have many cities. So in those communities, those black communities, why are all these children striving for that one chance? It's like the lottery. It's 1 in 50 million that your child is going to make that lottery or that.
And they're moving them lotteries in every city too.
And so the crazy part is that we haven't recognized, because we have been thoroughly brainwashed, that we're forgetting to teach our children and show our children the way in which they should go towards academic excellence. And if we don't teach our children, who's going to teach them? That's when the brainwashing process starts. That's where it ends at. And then you wonder and you say, what's wrong with our children? Why are they doing these violent acts? Why are they robbing? Why are they killing? It's because it's our fault as community members, our fault as leaders,
as adults.
Our faults as adults. And when we become politicians, all we try to do is line our pockets with the money that the rest of them are lining their pockets with. We're not being constructive and active in the community and making and bringing about change.
Yeah, that's where I want to end at. I want to end on, what do we do? How do we have an impact on the brainwashing?
Well, I must say, man, we forgot.
Oh, our
disclaimer.
We got to do a disclaimer at the end of the show. We do a disclaimer on every show so that we can dam up the mouths of those individuals who want to throw labels at us. And we disclaim all of those labels. We say we're not racist.
We're not homophobic.
And we're not anti-Semitic.
We're not anti-white establishment.
Any of those negative labels that persons give you when you are speaking your truth. And that's what we do here. We don't want to be hamstrung by these false labels that people give. So we just say, if you keep listening, you're going to hear our disclaimer. So that's our disclaimer. Now, we knew we was going to get into some real issues today that's going to be impactful. And at least we're going to be able to point out some stuff that perhaps you haven't seen.
And also, we may have to do a part 3, but we're definitely going to do a part 2. So stay tuned.
Well, part 2 then we'll focus on those things that we can do to thwart the impact of the brainwashing.
Right.
Because that's what has happened. Of course, we grew up in this country, and we were victims of the brainwashing too.
Right. And we will admit that until we became in the light or became conscious or in consciousness, and it's a continual process because they're throwing these images at us every day. So we have to basically sit back sometime and say, hey, look, they're trying to consume us. They're trying to get us with the brainwashing. That's just like, if you look at it today with the gang members, and I'm not talking about anybody in particular, I'm just pointing out a fact. The Ku Klux Klan allegedly wrote this false or fake letter, and it may have been a real letter. They said, thanks to all the gangbangers, we do not have to go out and do any lynching. We don't have to do any type of brutality. We don't have to go out and, promote fear and make terror in your communities anymore, because you all, as black young gangbangers, are doing an excellent job. You're getting high, you're drinking, and you're going out and wreaking havoc in your own community. You're doing a good drive-by, meaning you're killing more people than we actually hung in our time, in our heyday as Ku Klux Klan. So what I'm saying to you is that we have become so brainwashed that we have become the haters of self.
Doing the job of the persons who have ulterior motives in our community. And that's what we're trying to challenge, and we're trying to fight back. Because like we said, we were victims of the brainwashing ourselves. We participated in all of the ignorance that the community participates in. Matter of fact, that is the reason why we think it's possible to get you to change behavior.
Right.
Because we changed our behavior.
Right. And that's the key.
You can change yours.
Right. And if we can do it, and we're not, we didn't fall down from no place of high. We came through this ghetto and this
gauntlet.
And this American nightmare, and we want our people to pursue this dream. There is a dream that you can pursue, but the first process that you have to go through is to become deprogrammed. You have to become an acknowledger of the fact that you were in fact brainwashed, or you're being brainwashed. And that's the first level.
That's the first level. What is be ye renewed?
Right. I say, be ye not conformed, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that process starts today. Accepting that you have been. I have been. That's right. Brother Wayne has been. So if you have been brainwashed, which I know for a fact, in some form or fashion you have.
And one level of being brainwashed is to have no concern about the community from which you come. You're brainwashed too. Right. You may not be out there doing any of it, but you're not concerned about it. Right. You've been checkmated. You've been checked. That's the other idea, is that if we can't get you to participate, we want to keep you from helping out.
Right. And you say, oh, I'm not worried about what's going on over there. That's not where I live at.
You've been brainwashed.
Hey, you live in Little Rock. You may live in West Little Rock, or wherever you may be living in your city. You may live west of the East End or the South End, whichever. You are still a product of your greater community. So you cannot hide in your $1 million house and say, oh, that's them over there.
Yeah, so that's the process. We're saying that that's the brainwashing that we've got to overcome. And once you get to the idea that, okay, now what do I do? But there's an agenda that we have that we got to focus on. The agenda that we need to really put some energy in. And I'm going to list them, and we'll be taking them up probably in the next program.
Yes, sir.
The Black Agenda President right now, we got to do something about mass incarceration.
Yes, sir.
They're really approaching our community with this whole concept of arrest everybody.
Yes, sir. Get you that felony. Once you get the felony, in some states they allow you to vote, but in most states they do not allow you to vote again ever. So that is a form of taking you out of the game.
Poverty We've got to learn how to develop wealth in our communities for ourselves. So that means that the third one is unemployment. We've got to focus on how do we create jobs, because that's what leads to the breaking of the laws, which leads to them being able to arrest us and incarcerate our young people and our people. And the fourth one, of course, is the violence that's in our community.
Yes, sir.
We've got to learn that we are one and the same.
And we present this in class, and a lot of times people don't understand how the slave process and the slave breaking and the slave making came about. But if you really look at it, on those plantations, when they sold a sister or a brother to another plantation, that means that they may have been in Georgia and sold a brother or sister to Arkansas. So that brother or sister that moved and was transported to Arkansas, they became that person's property, that Johnson or Jackson. So you have a Jackson in Georgia and you have a Johnson in Arkansas. But this is the brother. This is the brother or sister here. So that person is a brother or sister. So if that person migrated back to Georgia, he doesn't know that this is his sister. So now we're killing each other, and we don't even realize this is a cousin or a distant cousin, a family member. So we have to come out of this state of mind that we're separate. We're one group when you break it down. They group was the brainwashers group. They look at us as a segment of people, and that's it.
I was listening just recently to Self-Destruction, Akub Modi. See, I didn't ever run from the Klan, and I shouldn't have to run from a black man.
Because that's self-destruction.
Because that's self-destruction.
And that's what we're talking about, unity and love. If we don't have those two, we're in trouble, people.
Listen, let's stop it right there.
Okay.
I think that's a good point to stop on, and we'll hopefully you'll look forward to part 2 on this subject, because Brainwash is a very good piece, and I promise to have the book in my hand next week.
Yes, sir.
So you can see what the book looks like, but it's by Tom Burrell, Brainwash. Get the book, read it, you'll be glad you did.
Radio station. And
we also like to encourage you to tune in wherever you are on the internet. You can get us on radio at kabf.org every Sunday morning at 8:30, and that's 8:30 Central Standard Time. Tune in to a live broadcast, and we'll do what we do then as well. So until then, make sure you can catch us on the internet as well. Go to our website, MIBNESS.com.
Yes, sir.
And give us a call, and we can come to your city. We can do what we do for your youth as well.
And we do it live.
And we do it live. It's been Brother Wayne saying to all of you, peace, and have a great rest of the day.
Peace.
Get you a paper, turn on the news, ride through the hood, I witness the blues. How can you ignore it? It's easy to spot it. The trap house, a liquor store, and your city's got it, and my city's got it, and their city's got it. This world is chaotic, and nothing's symbolic, so life don't get cherished. So our babies perish, and your babies perish. Now tell me who's careless, now who should I pray to? What should I pray for?